Have you ever trusted a number so completely that you never thought to question it? The official report stated it clearly. Ashford Tunnel, Colorado. Length 2.3 miles. Not 2.29. Not 2.31. Exactly 2.3. But numbers only matter when they stay the same. Ethan Cole believed in numbers. He was the kind of man who didn't rely on instinct, or superstition, or stories passed down by people who couldn't explain what they saw. He trusted measurements, data, precision. That's why they sent him. The Ashford Tunnel had been sealed since 1998, after a partial collapse buried a section deep inside the mountain. No survivors were ever recovered. The official cause, structural instability. The unofficial reason, people in Ashford just stopped talking about it. When Ethan arrived, the first thing he noticed wasn't the tunnel. It was the silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that feels like something is waiting for you to leave. The road leading up to the entrance was cracked, overgrown, as if nature itself had tried to erase the place. A rusted gate blocked the tunnel's mouth, chains hanging loose, like they'd been locked once, but not anymore. A local sheriff stood nearby, watching, not curious, not welcoming, just watching. "You're here about the tunnel," he said. Not a question. Ethan nodded, already pulling out his equipment. Laser measurer, digital mapping device, standard procedure, routine work. The sheriff took a slow step closer. "You planning to go all the way in?" Ethan barely looked up. "That's the job." A pause, long enough to matter. "They measured it already," the sheriff said quietly. "Back when it was still open." Ethan gave a faint, dismissive smile. "I'm not here to trust old numbers." Another silence. "Heavier this time." "Suit yourself," the sheriff muttered. But he didn't leave. Ethan stepped past the gate, the metal groaning softly as it brushed against his shoulder. And just like that, the world behind him felt distant. Inside, the air was colder, still, thick in a way that didn't feel natural. His boots echoed against the concrete floor. Sharp, clear, but something about the sound felt off. It came back too late. Ethan stopped walking. One step, then another. The echo followed, but not quite in sync. He frowned, glancing behind him. Nothing. Just darkness stretching back to the entrance. Acoustics, he muttered under his breath. Old tunnels did that. Sometimes. He activated his laser measurer. A thin red beam slicing through the darkness ahead. Numbers flickered on the screen. Tracking distance. Mapping structure. Everything normal. Everything exactly as it should be. Mile 1 passed. Then another. The tunnel remained unchanged. Smooth concrete walls. Occasional cracks. Faint markings left behind by workers decades ago. No collapse. No obstruction. No reason it should have been sealed. Ethan slowed his pace, his eyes scanning the walls more carefully now. Something wasn't adding up. At exactly 2.3 miles. He stopped. This should be the end. A collapsed section. A barrier. Something. Instead, the tunnel continued. Not broken. Not damaged. Just continuing. Ethan stared ahead. The beam of his light stretching forward, revealing more of the same endless concrete passage. He checked his device again. 2.3 miles. Exactly. He turned back, looking the way he came. The entrance was still there. A faint circle of light in the distance. Normal. Everything normal. And yet, Ethan took a slow breath, his grip tightening slightly around the device. This isn't right. For the first time since he arrived, the numbers didn't make sense. And somewhere deep in the tunnel, far beyond where the light could reach, there was a sound. A single, distant footstep. Not behind him, but ahead. Ethan didn't run. That would have meant accepting that something was wrong. Instead, he stood there, completely still, listening. The sound didn't come again. No footsteps. No movement. Just the same heavy silence pressing in from all sides. After a moment, he let out a slow breath, shaking his head. Sound carries weird in tunnels. That's what he told himself. What he needed to keep things simple. He turned back toward the entrance. Each step measured, controlled. The faint circle of daylight growing larger ahead. When he finally stepped outside, the air felt different. Lighter. Like surfacing from underwater. Without realizing you'd been holding your breath. The sheriff was still there. Exactly where he'd been. You make it to the end, he asked. Ethan hesitated. Just for a second. There is no end, he said flatly. The sheriff didn't look surprised. That bothered him more than anything else. That night, Ethan didn't sleep much. Not because he was scared, but because the numbers wouldn't leave him alone. 2.3 miles. Measured. Documented. Verified decades ago. And yet, he had walked farther. He was certain of it. By morning, certainty had turned into something else. Obsession. He returned to the tunnel just after sunrise. This time, prepared. A more precise laser system. A calibrated distance tracker. A GPS logger, even though he knew it wouldn't hold signal underground. He wasn't leaving anything to chance. The gate creaked open again. That same dull, hollow sound. And just like before, the moment he stepped inside, something shifted. Not physically, not visibly, but enough to make his shoulders tense. Without him understanding why. Focus, he whispered to himself. Step by step, the devices began logging data. Distance. Time. Movement. Everything normal. At first, mile 1. Mile 2. The same walls. The same cracks. Even the same faded markings left behind by workers years ago. Ethan's breathing remained steady, but his grip tightened slightly around the scanner. At 2.3 miles, stop this time. He kept walking. The numbers climbed. 2.4, 2.5, 2.6. His jaw clenched. No, he murmured. That's not possible. But the device didn't glitch, didn't flicker, didn't hesitate. It just kept counting. At 2.8 miles, Ethan stopped. Slowly, he turned his head toward the wall. There, scratched into the concrete, faint, uneven, like it had been carved in a hurry. A marking. 2.0. Below it, another. 2.5. And then, just ahead of him, one more. 3. Ethan's stomach tightened. These weren't official. Not part of any blueprint. Someone had measured this place before him, and they had kept going. He swallowed, taking a slow step forward, until his device beeped softly in his hand. 3.1 miles. His eyes locked onto the wall. Right beside the crude 3 marking, there were words. Not numbers this time. A message. Carved deeper, harder. As if whoever wrote it needed it to be seen. Ethan leaned closer, his light trembling slightly now. Turned back before the 3rd mile. A long silence followed. Ethan didn't move, didn't breathe. Then slowly, almost mechanically, he lowered his device and looked down at the screen. 3.1 miles. He was already past it. Ethan didn't turn back immediately. Not because he ignored the warning, but because something about it felt wrong. Too late. The words on the wall weren't trying to help. They were recording, like someone had already made the mistake and left proof behind. Ethan exhaled slowly, forcing his thoughts into order. Think. There had to be an explanation. A measurement error. A structural extension. Something rational. But rational things don't leave warnings carved in panic. He turned around. The way back stretched behind him. Long, narrow, silent. For a moment, relief flickered across his face. The entrance was still there. A faint glow in the distance. Good. He started walking. Steady. Controlled. Step after step. The distance tracker still running in his hand. 3.0. 2.9. 2.8. The numbers were going down. That made sense. It had to. But something else didn't. The tunnel felt quieter. Not just silent, but emptied. His footsteps no longer echoed the same way. The delay was gone. Now, there was no echo at all. Ethan slowed. He took another step. Nothing followed. No sound returning to him. No reflection of movement. Just absence. His breathing grew louder in his ears. Too loud. Like it didn't belong to the space around him anymore. He stopped walking and held his breath. For a second, everything vanished. No footsteps. No air. No presence. Then, a sound. Not behind him. Not ahead. But But somewhere deeper, a faint, dragging noise. Ethan turned sharply, his light cutting through the darkness behind him. Nothing but the tunnel looked different. Subtly, the cracks in the wall didn't match what he remembered. The markings were fewer. His chest tightened. No. He spun back toward the exit. The faint light he had seen before was gone. Completely. The tunnel stretched endlessly in both directions now. Identical. Unbroken. Ethan's breathing hitched, his grip tightening around the device as he raised it again. The numbers flickered. 2.6 miles. That didn't make sense. He had been walking toward the entrance. The number should have kept decreasing, but it wasn't. It had stopped. Ethan's pulse began to rise, a slow, creeping panic building beneath his skin. He turned in a full circle, the beam of his light scanning everything. Walls, floor, ceiling. Nothing had changed. And yet, everything had. That's when he saw it. Half buried near the edge of a wall, covered in dust. A camera. Old. Damaged. Left behind. Ethan hesitated before crouching down and picking it up. The screen flickered faintly as he powered it on. A single video file. He pressed play. Static filled the screen for a moment before an image slowly formed. A man wearing a construction vest, helmet light shaking as he moved. He was inside the same tunnel, walking quickly, breathing hard. Just keep going, the man muttered. I'm close. I know I'm close. The camera shifted, catching a glimpse behind him. The tunnel. But something about it was wrong. The walls were closing in, not collapsing, but shortening, erasing distance. Ethan froze, his eyes locked onto the screen. The man in the footage turned suddenly, pointing the camera forward again. There's no end, he whispered. It just... The video cut to black. Silence returned. Ethan slowly lowered the camera, his hands no longer steady. The realization settled in. Heavy, unavoidable. The tunnel didn't just grow. It changed. And worse, it didn't want to be left. Ethan didn't move. The camera hung loosely in his hand, its dark screen reflecting nothing back at him. For the first time since entering the tunnel, he stopped trying to explain it, because there was nothing left. That made sense. The tunnel didn't follow rules. It made them. Slowly, he raised his distance tracker again. The number hadn't changed. 2.6 miles. Not increasing. Not decreasing. Just holding him there. Ethan swallowed. His throat dry now. His breath uneven. All right, he whispered. If you don't want me to leave. His voice wavered slightly, but he forced it steady. Then I stopped trying. Silence answered him, but something shifted. Not around him, but within the space itself. Ethan took a single step forward. The number changed. 2.7 miles. Another step. 2.8. His eyes narrowed slightly, understanding creeping in. He turned around, facing the direction he thought was the exit, then took a step. 2.9 miles. Not down. Up. A slow, cold realization settled over him. It's not distance, he murmured. It's direction. The tunnel didn't trap people. It trapped movement. The moment you chose a way out, it stretched endlessly. Ethan let out a quiet breath, a hollow sound in the empty space. Then I don't choose. He stood still, completely still. Seconds passed, then minutes. Nothing changed. No sound. No movement. No shift in the air. Just the weight of the tunnel pressing in around him. And then, a voice. Soft. Familiar. Just keep going. Ethan's eyes widened slightly. He knew that voice. Slowly, he lifted the camera again. His hands trembling now. He turned it toward the darkness ahead and pressed record. The small red light blinked on. For a moment, nothing. Then, a figure appeared in the distance, walking toward him, unsteady. The beam of Ethan's light stretched forward, revealing more. Step by step, the same jacket, the same equipment, the same face, his own. The figure stopped, raising its head slowly, meeting his gaze, and then, in a voice that wasn't quite his, but close enough, it spoke. There's no end. The camera slipped from Ethan's hand, clattering softly against the ground. The light flickered once, then steadied, now pointing down the endless stretch of tunnel. Footsteps echoed faintly, growing more distant, or closer. It was impossible to tell. Days later, search teams arrived at Ashford Tunnel. They found the gate open, the air inside colder than expected, and just a few steps past the entrance, they found a camera, still recording. The footage showed a man walking through the tunnel, measuring, talking, searching, repeating the same path, again, and again, and again. The timestamp never changed, and neither did the distance. 2.6 miles. Official records still list Ashford Tunnel as exactly 2.3 miles long, measured once, and never again.